I'm a little more involved on the pro side. That being said, I have to know who the top amateurs are.
Yeah.
How do you first track down these potential prospects?
You know, the scouts have their own networks, and so in Western Canada, we have 3 full-time amateur scouts, and we also have 2 part-time amateur scouts. And then we have crossover scouts that will come into the territory. So say our Alberta scout is very connected in Alberta and Saskatchewan in the communities. He's a former major, junior, both coach and general manager. So he builds his network out, and it's a lot of conversations, a lot of time spent in the hockey rink. For instance, my title is Vice President of Hockey Operations, so I have a lot of day-to-day operations here with the Leafs, and yet I've still seen probably close to 70 hockey games this year, live.
Yeah.
So they go out. I mean, you know, a scout may see, and this sounds like a high number, but a good amateur scout may see somewhere between 150 and 200 games a year.
Yeah. As a former player, is there any certain things you look for in these kids?
You know, if you're working with Brian Burke, and I did work with him on a part-time basis when he was in Anaheim as well, and Brian was my first agent when I played. So I go back to 1982 with Brian. He was an agent. He was my agent for 5 years when I played in Philadelphia. And if you're going to help Brian Burke build a hockey team, the first item we talk about is character. And we're interested in very high character individuals. And then the skills fit into place. And so, you know, the obvious skills, hockey sense is a very, very, very important and I think an underrated skill. And the ability to read a game and see a game and react to a game. And then you're rating skating levels, you're rating puck skills, you're rating a shot, you're rating all things like that. So you're looking for a whole package, and then you have to weigh out if a player does 1 or 2 things really well, you have to see if he's capable of getting better, if he's got an upside. We've got a very sophisticated strength and conditioning group that will, when we're doing interviews before the draft, that will test body types and run a series of physical tests to know if a player, you know, potentially can still grow, or his core can get stronger, or he's got an upside. Maybe he can, you know, he might be playing at 170 pounds now, but our guys think he can play at 200 pounds. So all those different factors weigh in. You do interview them. There is a fairly extensive interview, but character is something we keep coming back to. We want very high character individuals on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay, now more about your job and the more scouting aspect of this. What kind of training would you need to be a scout?
That's a very interesting question because we have people from different backgrounds, and you know, so I played the game, I coached the game at a high level at the Division I college level, and recruited there for 10 years, and recruiting is scouting. I worked for a couple of years part-time amateur pro scout for the Anaheim Ducks. You know, but I've worked in the business world. I worked in executive recruiting and interviewed up to 500 people a year for high-level corporate jobs. So there's a lot of different backgrounds. When I hired a couple of scouts this year, I hired a former agent who'd also coached in the NHL, Steve Casper. He had played in the NHL, he had coached, had been a head coach in the NHL, and at the time was a player agent. If I think of the backgrounds of my scouting staff now, the majority of them have played, but not necessarily at the NHL level. They've played at a high level of junior. A number of them have coached, a number of them have been in management at some level. So it's being in the hockey community at some level. You know, for a young guy, he could start, you know, as a peewee coach or a midget coach and work up into the junior ranks. But it's people generally that have a passion for the game, that understand the game, that see the game well.